Got a two-part episode coming your way. Brand new on Friar. He is Derek. I am Darnay. Derek and I will spend the next 30 minutes or so discussing, per usual, what we've seen from the Padres in the last week, some of the big trends and storylines. And the back half of this episode, Derek, you had a special guest.
Yeah, Heidi Watney, longtime MLB Network analyst, now working with Apple TV. She is going to be doing the sideline stuff because the Padres and Mariners on Friday night, the opening of the Vetter Cup is also on Apple TV. It's going to be one of those streaming games. So we caught up with Heidi, who, by the way, has an interesting history with San Diego that we'll get into. Not just being a University of San Diego alum, ties to our very station, Darnay. So we'll get into that with her a little bit as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Excited to hear her perspective on the Padres and discuss again what has transpired over the course of the last week. First things first, thanks to OGs, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Always appreciate what they do for On Friar and the NBC7 Sports Wrap team. If you want to check out the Padres, maybe some NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, PGA Championship over the weekend, head up OGs, tons of TVs, bunch of locations around town, great menu, and an awesome beer list. So shout out to OGs, check them out, and thanks again to OGs for all they do for the pod. Without further ado, where are we now? There it is, the walk-up music. It is the On Fire podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Pleased to be with you on a Thursday afternoon, another Thursday off day for the San Diego Padres, splitting in half this homestand between AL West opponents. Last place Angels in the books. First place Mariners, at least they were going into the week. Up ahead, Halos didn't exactly look or play like a last place team. They're a scrappy, resilient bunch that made things difficult, certainly on Monday, and no real smooth sailing through the course of this series. It felt like every game could have kind of gone either way in the late innings. Maybe it was just kind of the hangover from Monday. Didn't feel too comfortable, Derek, and that's kind of been one of the big stories the last couple of weeks. Is okay, bullpen. Let's bring it all back together because it's been a bit of a rocky ride.
Yeah, they've been used a lot. You got to figure at some point Robert Suarez is going to have one bad outing. I don't think anybody envisioned it being that bad. Walking, was it 3-4 straight to bring in the tying run? That's something I can pretty much guarantee we will never see again in his career. So it's everybody has one day. Even Trevor Hoffman blew saves. Mariano Rivera blew a save in the 7th inning of a World Series. I was in the building to watch it. It happens every now and again. I think the fact that it's all kind of happening at once is maybe a little bit concerning to people. But again, bullpens ebb and flow. And the bottom line is a Ron Washington managed team is always going to be scrappy. They're always going to come at you with everything they have, even if what they have does not include Mike Trout because he's out injured again. Take a 2 out of 3 from them when you had a chance to sweep it. I will take that all day, every day, especially because we've seen life from Xander Bogaerts and because Fernando Tatis Jr. was doing Fernando Tatis Jr. things. And really, Jackson Merrill didn't hit the last couple of games. So he darn near won the first game single-handedly, and then everyone picked him up the last couple of games. So that's nice to see.
Yeah, and that was kind of the shame of Monday. You have this Jackson Merrill performance, felt very much like the Jackson Merrill game, and you want that to come into victory. It looked like it was going to come into victory. He did pretty much everything defensively, certainly on the base pass, and obviously with the bat as well. And then to see things go south and then to have Robert Suarez and that whole meltdown kind of overshadow what Jackson Merrill did was a bummer. But you kind of led me right into, I think, the overarching theme of this episode, at least kind of what was on my mind going in, was kind of getting past Monday. Suarez, of course, appeared on Wednesday. Bullpen did its job down the stretch. Good to see. Hopefully that's kind of now in the past. But these big moments for Jackson Merrill, his continued excellence, big moments for Fernando Tatis Jr. Coming off last week, we're like, is he searching a little bit? he found something, and certainly found something on Tuesday night. That was fun to watch. Continues to have big moments. Manny Machado just tearing the cover off the ball, even if he's not necessarily hitting for conventional power. The homers aren't here. Feels a bit like 2022, especially in stretches where he wasn't hitting for a ton of power, but just that consistent heartbeat of the lineup. And Xander Bogaerts, a guy who, even if the numbers aren't what you would want them to be, if you look over the last 2.5 weeks, he's had moments. He's had big, significant moments for this club. And so I don't know if there's a guy in particular, Derek, that interests you or piques your curiosity. But that's what's kind of been on my mind after the Angels series, is like the different levels. Certainly Bogaerts isn't on Tatis's level. Tatis and Machado are doing something special. Jackson Merrill, probably the best center fielder in baseball. He's playing out of his mind, but it's just good to see all of these guys contributing in their own way.
And it seems like everyone's had a moment. Gavin Sheets has had moments. Luis Arraez has had moments. Tyler Wade has had moments. Everybody who's played has had a moment to help this team win a baseball game. Brandon Lockridge has had a couple of moments. Some of the catches he's made in the outfield have been some game-saving types of catches. So it's nice to see that it's not the same guys every time. You can rely on Manny. By the way, Manny has a 900 OPS. So anybody who's saying he's not hitting for power, would look at the number. Yeah, he only has 3 home runs. How many doubles does he have? He's hitting 340. His a 900 OPS is going to put him, if he finishes with that, in the top 15 in Major League Baseball by the end of the year. Keep that into some perspective. He's had some moments. Xander Bogaerts lately has had some moments. Toddy has a moment. Merrill had his moment. Everybody up and down the lineup has done something good to help this club. And that shows you the kind of depth that they have, especially with how many guys. Jake Cronenworth has had a couple of moments, even though he's missed more than a month with a broken rib. So it's great to see the kind of depth they have up and down the lineup. And you really can rely on everyone to do their part, which I think, as you see that in the lineup, as you go throughout the course of the season, it gets deeper and deeper. What we can tend to see is, and we saw this in the playoffs with the Padres last year in the division series, everyone's coming up trying to hit a 6-run home run instead of get on base, pass the baton, whatever cliche you want to use, let the next guy do their thing because they can. So if you show during the year you have this many guys in the lineup who can, in fact, do that, I think it bodes really well for getting deeper in the season when the games do get a little bit tighter, when you're facing some more bullpen type games, that you have a team that you're not going to go into sell out for everything mode, because I feel like I have to be the guy. That goes up and down the lineup, even into the bench, where guys believe the next guy behind them, if I take a walk, someone's going to drive me in. I don't have to expand my strike zone to try and do too much.
Yeah, and I think, the bottom of the 8th, when that game was still somewhat in the balance, is a great example of that. Machado sees 4 straight balls. Merrill strikes out. Bogaerts, fielder's choice, advances Machado on the error. Sheet strikes out Cronenworth, and Cronenworth isn't typically a guy that gets outside of himself, but he works a 6-pitch walk, and that's could very easily be a situation where with 2 outs, Jake feels like, all right, we're getting to Lockridge and Maldonado. Is it incumbent on me to get this done? He draws a walk, loads the bases, and then Brandon Lockridge sees 97 low, looks at it, and then sees 95 kind of up in the zone and makes solid contact and drives in 2 more runs. And at that point, you're like, okay, game, set, match. And,
Right.
I thought about this a couple weeks ago when it felt like they were in the lull with the injuries and that sort of thing. Just how much better, and maybe this is just an obvious thing, and it's probably true of every baseball team, but how much better this team has been when they take that full squad approach and are willing to pass the baton and have confidence in one another. And the guys at the top of the order aren't trying to do too much. And I think you don't have to look further than 2023 to see the opposite of that. When there was no depth to this lineup, they were relying on Soto. They were relying on Soto. They were relying on, obviously, Tatis. Once he came back, Machado, Bogaerts, his first year with the club. I think the hope with the club was you got 4 all-star type guys. That should be enough. The rest of the lineup did nothing. And obviously Machado struggled, Tatis up and down, Bogaerts wasn't as consistent. But it felt maybe a little bit more like the approach was those guys feast and the rest will take care of itself. And you saw last year, it was those guys saying, well, everybody can get it done. And maybe it took those guys to prove it. But hey, everybody can get it done. It doesn't have to be on me. I have to do, and Machado talked about this a couple weeks ago, do what the game tells you. And it's easier said than done. And it seems like they have more of that approach the last couple of years than they did in 2023, where it was like, I got to get this done or it's not going to happen once we get to Matt Carpenter and Trent Grisham and whoever else was
Nelson
Rougned
Cruz
Odor and
who was Austin Nola for a
yeah.
time. Yeah, it was rough. There were more holes in that lineup than anybody really either realized or cared to admit. I'm not sure. I fall into both of those camps, I think, at different portions during that year. This year, just it's different. And you see the difference that a guy like Luis Arraez has in that lineup, man. It just, he is so pesky, and opposing pitchers just hate seeing him so much that it just kind of, it's almost like it puts the opposing pitcher in a bad mood. And then he's, messed up for the next 3 or 4 guys in the order. It's really cool to see what he does as a table setter for the rest of this lineup. Then they have so many different styles of hitter, left, right, switch, whatever you want. They really can beat you. And it's the old baseball cliche, what Mike Schultz says all the time. How does this guy beat the other team? And the Padres lineup right now, everybody in that lineup has a way that they can beat the other team. Even if it's, Martin Maldonado, he can beat the other team by controlling the run game, behind the plate and blocking pitches and calling a really good game. Elias Diaz is showing something with the bat, probably more than he's shown since his 2023 All-Star appearance with the Rockies. It's everybody can do something to beat the other team, and that's a really encouraging sign.
It is very much so. And again, just kind of continuation of what we saw last year. So many places we can go. Let's start with Manny. You mentioned his numbers. His career OPS plus is 125. It's 155 this year. And again, remarkable. Yeah, real good. And remarkable when you consider he's only got 3 homers, again, which you referenced, and he's been just a 30 homer guy. And I'm sure, knowing Manny, he's going to figure out a way to get to his 30 homers. But he has 14 doubles through 42 games. So we're just past the quarter mark. You're on track for 50 plus doubles. His career high is 51 in 2013. If he's able to continue this pace, and again, he was 20 years old at that point. He had 30 last year. He's almost at double that total and he played 152 games last year. It's, that's been really, really impressive. And the way he's able to contribute in so many different ways, have different approaches, different styles, and he's still able to be just as effective. Power, maybe not what you would expect it to be, but he's still slugging at an incredible rate. His average exit velocity is almost 2 points higher. It's kind of interesting. His average exit velocity, almost 2 points higher than his career average, and his hard hit percentage, 57.5 compared to around 50 for his career. So you kind of think, all right, well, the homers are probably going to come at some point. Those would seem to, lead to that at some point. Strikeouts are down, walks are up. He's been incredible and fun seeing him do it in kind of a different way. And at 32, it's probably too early to be like, what does old Manny Machado look like? But it gives you
no, please don't start telling me 32 is old. My God, no, please.
For high level athlete old, not for you and I, but for elite athlete, that sort of thing also gives you more faith that as he goes and time wears on and that contract wears on, he gets to the latter years of it. He could just switch up his style, approach it a different way, and still find a different way to be effective. He doesn't necessarily have to be a 30 home run guy.
He could get to, this is a crazy number, he could get to 60 doubles this year, right? He's on a pace for 56 right now.
About that, yeah.
And it's, a couple more fall in here and there. Do you know how many 60 double seasons? I literally just looked this up as you were talking about this because you sparked an idea. There have been 6 in Major League history. 6 times a player has hit 60 doubles in a season. The last one was 1936.
Really?
When Joe Medwick and Charlie Gehringer both had hit top 60 doubles. That's everything else before that was before 1936.
Wow.
Which is wild to think about. Freddie Freeman 2 years ago got 59, so we got close. But that's 60 doubles is such a rare number to get to, and you wouldn't really think about it because you don't think of doubles all that much. You think home runs, you think triples are kind of a novelty. You think about that. I think you only think about setting a single season doubles record or getting to a mythical, like 50 home runs or something in a season. And everybody goes, wow, that's crazy. It's actually more difficult to hit 60 doubles in a year than it is 50 homers in a year, which is kind of wild to think about.
Mm-hmm. And I was just pulling up his Savant page. I mean, you look at 2022, where, I mean, there's a reasonable case that Manny Machado should have been NL MVP in 2022.
Oh, with how he carried that team, especially with the injury, we will both go back there and say, yes, he should have been the MVP.
You look at his sliders then compared to his sliders now, and again, we're a quarter of the way into the season, smallish sample size still, although you've always said, I think, 40 or 60 games, you feel like you got a handle of, who a guy is or who a team is. Obviously, things can change this season, but it's not like a couple weeks of flash in the pan. I mean, there's a lot of red and deep red on his baseball savant page. You look at his rolling, expected, weighted, on base, and average, just on a steady incline. So he's been unbelievable, again, kind of doing it a different way. And Mike Schild has really credited his base running. He's base running, according to Savant, 75th percentile, up from 26th a year ago. So he's just doing a lot of little things well. And then there's the defensive piece on top of all that. It's just great to have this version of Manny Machado, which, we seem to arrive maybe about 11 months ago, mid-June, when he kind of got fed up of being slowed down by the injuries and kicked it into a different gear and hasn't stopped since.
Yeah, he's been incredible. He really has. And it's weird because, he's a superstar and he's on a team with Fernando Tatis Jr. doing what he's doing and with Jackson Merrill doing what he's doing. So Manny is kind of like, was almost fallen by the wayside a little bit when it comes to who are the superstars and the really big offensive threats on this ball club right now. And Manny's absolutely one of them. And he just rolling right along. I'll say this, man, his swing is like a metronome. It just doesn't change. His approach, it's the same every single time. And the power comes and the power goes, but he's always hitting the ball hard. And I'll say if Fernando Tatis Jr. took that kind of approach, where it was, look at that home run he hit off of Kenley Jansen, all right, where he got the leg kick. His timing was off, so he had to basically stop mid-swing, do a quick load, and go. And he hit it 430 feet. And that's what we keep talking about, Darnay. We keep talking about if he just throws his hands and puts the barrel on the ball, look what happens.
Yeah.
He basically did that without a stride or much of a load. Like, that's insane. It's insane to think about because Kenley Jansen's lost a little bit in the tank, but he's certainly, he's going to get Hall of Fame votes somewhere down the road. He's not completely devoid of any velocity or talent anymore. So just to see that if Toddy just took the same kind of approach that Manny did, where it was, I'm not changing my swing, is just this is what it is. This is how I am. This is who I am, and the power will come. Then Toddy hit 60 bombs every year. That's a little bit of hyperbole. He hit 40 every year without blinking.
And 60 doubles.
Yeah, and 60 doubles, right? With his speed, absolutely. So it's, maybe someday it'll happen as Toddy continues to get. Remember, he's 26 years old. As he continues to age and maturity, tend to teach us a lot of things. So we'll see. What I will say right now, though, is with the structure of the Padres lineup, I'm really encouraged what the rest of the season is going to look like.
Yeah, I agree. And Tatis, there was also that homer on Monday where he did kind of have that 3/4 sort of sawed off follow through. I think it was a one-arm follow through, but he ended like here as opposed to way back here. And I love the 2-arm follow through, and that almost was a version of that where, again, he doesn't have to swing out of his shoes. He doesn't have to have a big swing. There's so much power. And even when he's like, it looks like a kind of a Tiger Woods stinger, like that shortened response, but there's so much power to it. And it's impressive. And it's fun seeing him hit like that because it doesn't seem normal. Like you should have to swing out of your shoes to generate the type of power that he does, but he's not that type of guy. It comes so naturally to him. And I almost wonder if, like, that homer that he had off Jansen, he kind of went from big leg kick to toe tap. And I wonder if using the toe tap as much as he has somehow innately allowed him to adjust in that situation where he puts his toe down. He's like, oh crap, let me reload. And then he does it. And that's kind of when he's doing the toe tap, he sticks his foot in the ground and then kind of reacts to whatever's coming his way. It almost seemed like having those two different approaches and trying those different things maybe helped him in a situation where he misread a pitch out of the hand and then had to adjust to it.
Yeah, that kind of experience can certainly help you in that regard. I think the bottom line is that is a superior freakish athlete doing superior freakish athlete things, because that's, you can't teach that. It's like Scotty Scheffler's golf swing. You don't teach that. Nobody would ever teach that, but it works because he just knows what he's doing. Nobody would ever teach what Fernando Tatis Jr. did on that swing, but it works because he did it. It's nuts. It's just nuts. I looked at that. I looked at the replay 3 or 4 times and just rolled it back on my little, scroll bar on my phone, and just went, this, I can count on. It's like almost Adrian Beltre hitting a home run when he's on his knee.
On his knee.
You just don't see guys doing that unless they're just insanely talented.
Yeah. It's like nobody would watch tape of Reggie Miller and go to a young kid and be like, shoot the ball like this.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. That's not exactly a traditional release.
Yeah. A couple interesting numbers that I wanted to run by. You mentioned Arise, and I want to talk a little bit more about Bogaerts. And Arise is awesome. I love Arise. People have mentioned a little bit about, and I want to say, Ryan Payne on Twitter is another guy that has brought this up a lot. He's probably in the camp of being a Luis Arise skeptic. And, people mention his numbers at Petco Park. And I don't know why any of this is. But if you look at, for instance, what he did with Minnesota at Target Field, 325 with an 822 OPS, 384 on base. Miami at Lone Depot, 349, 387 on base, 842 OPS. At Petco Park, 262, 284 on base, 624 OPS. Again, I don't know how or why. I'm not nearly smart enough, but for whatever reason, it hasn't translated for him in the same way. Road versus home, and I think particularly since he's been with the Padres, like there are stark numbers or there's a stark difference in terms of what he's doing. Let's see, this season, road versus home. At home, 233, 247 on base, 603 OPS. On the road, 338 average, almost a 400 on base, 841 OPS. You tell me.
I wish I could. I think last year you could probably chalk a lot of that up to the fact he was hurt. And the vast majority of these at-bats they were talking about at Petco Park came last year when he was hurt. He had the thumb thing. This year, I don't know. Maybe it's a comfortability thing. Maybe it's a distraction. I couldn't begin. Maybe he doesn't see the ball very well against the batter's eye. You also have the fact that the American League Central, not a whole lot of great pitching. The National League East, more good pitching, but not a whole lot of great pitching. The National League West, aside from the Rockies, chock full of stallion pitchers. Yeah. So you're facing them, but you're facing them more often. You're facing a better quality of pitching staff. So that has something to do with it as well. But this year, I mean, he's not hurt. My best guess would be, for some reason, he's either trying to do too much because he loves the home crowd here, which is something we've seen from guys up and down baseball for decades, or he's not seeing the ball very well. And sometimes some ballparks, guys just don't pick up the ball well. In other ballparks, they pick it up extremely well because of the construction of the ballpark. I haven't talked. I'd have to ask him about that. And I'm not sure if he'd admitted if I did ask him. But my guess would be, knowing Louis a little bit, that he loves the fan base here so much, he's trying to do too much.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. Certainly. It's just kind of one of those curiosities. And then with Bogaerts, it's kind of the same. I mean, this year, 188 average at home, 632 OPS, 293 average on the road, 762 OPS, about the same number of, he's an everyday guy at bats. So, and I was also going through his FanGraphs page just out of curiosity and look at different things. he has had little to no success when going the other way. And I don't know if he's really gone the other way a whole lot more this year than in the past. But again, just trying to find some of those soft spots for whatever reason, being at home. And he's been way more effective pulling the baseball, which maybe isn't, that huge of a surprise. But again, just kind of the stark difference in the numbers jumped out at me a little bit.
He's a guy who I talked to Heidi Watney quite a bit about because she's known him since he was a rookie over there in Boston when she was doing the Nesson stuff. So she actually gives, you'll hear that in just a little bit. She gives a very interesting take on who he is as a person and what we can expect from him. 810 OPS the last 7 games, 7 runs batted in the last 7 games. Again, he's a guy who is maybe not getting a whole lot of volume hits, but the hits he's getting are counting. And again, I'll take that until he has everything completely figured out because, again, I just keep waiting, man. 31, 32 years old. He's too damn talented to not have a long stretch where something goes right.
And, another interesting thing is how much do you put in kind of batted ball luck? Like his BABIP is 288 this year. His career number is 330. And
the ball hard at people, yeah.
That kind of makes sense because again, how often have we talked about like he really roped that one, like he got a hold of it, and some of like
right at the third baseman, yeah,
right at third baseman and third baseman. Some of the like exit velocity, like tick higher than average, hard hit rate above his career average. A good jump up from where he was the last couple years. Hasn't translated to a barrel rate necessarily. But again, these things should suggest that at some point he might go on a nice little run here. And while he hasn't been necessarily the Xander Bogaerts you might hope, it hasn't been like last year and middle of 2023 levels where you're really, really scratching your head because he's had those moments. He's had a couple homers of late. He's had some big games, productive games, good at-bats late in games. Obviously, the Yankees, the go-ahead 2-run, I forget if it was a single or a double, but the game-winning RBI there, enough that you're like, okay, like Xander's doing some things. And we keep thinking, oh, maybe this is where he turns the corner. If this is who he is, again, won't necessarily be satisfied, but it doesn't feel as dire as it did at points last year. And it feels like a guy that can contribute and do some good things for you in important spots.
Yeah, it's what we talked about here, the underlying metrics, they call it. And if you're hitting the ball hard, you're doing okay. Because in any manager, any front office person will tell you, if I've got a guy who's hitting the ball hard, but the results aren't there, I'm not worried about him because they're doing something right. They're just having that proverbial bad luck. So you keep hitting the ball hard, good things will happen at some point. And that's what we're hoping is going to happen with Xander this year.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a torpedo bat candidate.
I thought the other day, when was the last time you heard anybody mention the torpedo bat? That feels like that fad died off quickly.
Yeah, well, the Yankees stopped hitting quite as many home runs because the Brewers pitching staff stopped throwing the ball right down the middle to them, and everything kind of regressed to the mean.
Oh, man. Daniel says, hey, everyone, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you and to everybody watching and listening. Always great to have you with us.
What's going on, Daniel?
One of the last things I had, just, bit of housekeeping, like Yu Darvish appears to be on his way back.
Yes.
Las Vegas, AJ Cassavell reporting expect maybe one more start or rehab, whether it's on the farm or just with a team, kind of a rehab simulated start next week. And then that lines him up for later this month. And boy, it would be great to see Yu Darvish in action for the first time this year. Credit to Randy Vasquez. I think there's a lot of people wondering, like, hey, how is he doing this? I mean, 3 straight, like, if not quality starts, like really stellar appearances for this team. His stuff numbers aren't going to jump off the page, but he just manages to deliver and keeps you in the ball game and keeps opposing lineups in check and can weasel himself out of trouble. Xander Bogaerts talked about, I think it was with Sammy Levitt in the post game yesterday, just like get himself into a bad count and manages to get out of it, maybe through just some weak contact or something like that. So good on him, kind of continuing to carry the load. We'll see what Stephen Kolek does now going forward. But, we've gotten some good contributions from these guys, but no doubt would be great to see you back out there and see what the rotation looks like. Do they go 6-man? who ends up on the kind of outside looking in? All important questions, but the big headline is Yu appears to be close, and that's great news.
Vasquez has a 3.45 ERA.
I'll take it.
Over 44 and a third innings. He's thrown the same number of innings as Nick Pivetta, and he only has a 0.4 ERA differential. He's been good. His strikeout numbers are nowhere near what you'd expect. He's got 23 strikeouts in 44 and a third innings, but that's always kind of been Randy Vasquez, where he doesn't strike out a whole lot of guys. He's been great. It's not great. Hasn't been great. He's been better than I think anybody expected that he would have been. If right now I'd have told you, Darnay, he was 3-3 with a 4.25 ERA, what would you say?
Just going into the season, I'd say I could see that. Not terribly disappointed.
He was your fifth starter. Like, would you take that from Randy Vasquez?
Yeah, for sure.
And he's dramatically outperformed that, which more credit to him. The problem for him might be when Yu Darvish comes back, and we know that Yu Darvish is going to be the number 4 starter on this team. So if he's your number 4 starter, you're in pretty darn good shape. Randy Vasquez has done nothing to pitch his way out of the starting rotation. But what if Stephen Kolek never gives up a run again? Who's the guy between those two? Who's the one who leaves the starting rotation to make room for Darvish? And then the question that I'm going to ask Mike Schilt tomorrow when I'm out there for the start of the Vetter Cup is, when you've got guys throwing this well, do you toy with a 6-man rotation? Especially when you've got a guy like Yu who's coming in. He's probably going to be on a bit of a pitch limit for the first few starts, maybe. When you're not going to have him being out there quite as long, you might have some, piggyback type of situations. Do you give Randy Vasquez and Stephen Kolek a longer road to try and see which one of them either locks a job down or pitches their way out of rotation or whatever it is? Because Kolek's starting on Friday for his first home start in his major league career. And we know Petco Park's probably a slightly more pitcher-friendly area than Coors Field is. Now, granted, he's facing a much better Mariner lineup than whatever the Rockies are throwing out there at you. But if Stephen Kolek if this is something that they found, that he's able to continue to lock hitters up the way he has, you can't take him out of the rotation. So what do you do when Yu comes back? It's a great problem to have.
Yeah, I was just looking at the schedule. There's a stretch from late May into June where they play 13 games in 13 days. They have an off day on a Thursday, and then not another off day for 2 weeks. And
I think it's like 27 games in 28 days or something like that.
Yeah, that's what
27.
That's what it looks like. And so from that standpoint, it might make sense to have a 6-man where you're not getting those built-in days off that kind of stretch the schedule a little bit. You mentioned, with Yu Darvish. Dylan Cease looked fine. I don't think there's any reason for concern, but even just seeing him kind of flex his hand a little bit, like, okay, maybe pacing these guys early in the season isn't the worst thing. You've had some success with it before. You're in this phase where, like, okay, bullpen, where are they at right now? Let's not tax them too much. As we talked about last week, they've been in a lot of games and a lot of high leverage situations, a lot of close games. They've had to kind of carry the team a bit when the offense wasn't scoring a ton of runs. So it kind of makes sense. Like if Yu's back in a couple of weeks going into kind of a busier schedule, there's a lot that would suggest that going to a 6-man, pacing these guys a little bit would maybe do the team some good. And certainly Yu coming back from injury at this stage in his career, when there's just been a lot of injuries, not throwing too much on him too soon seems to be a good idea.
I think it certainly warrants consideration. And I'm pretty sure they are going to give it said warranted consideration.
Yeah. That's kind of all in my mind. You got anything else before we turn it over to Heidi?
I think on the Dylan Cease front, just kind of looking at the last 2 starts he's had, have both been very, very good. He went back to I'm throwing 97 right off the gate, and here's the slider.
Yeah.
It was, because a few starts in there, he was like, he has the 2-seam and he has the changeup, and he's kind of been mixing them in, and here you go. I'm going to try and figure out how I'm using this. And then against the Yankees, and he did this again against the Angels. He said, you know what? Screw you. Here it is. 97. Try and deal with this. I'm not messing around with this anymore. And then he uses the changeup as an out pitch. And that's where I think those 2 pitches need to be. They need to be the wrinkles. They don't need to be major parts of the repertoire, because the slider is still elite and the fastball is still elite. So when he's focused on those 2 pitches, he's Dylan Cease again. So hopefully he carries this approach throughout the rest of the year, because obviously it's incredibly effective.
It is, and it's good to see that version of Dylan Cease. I mean, he's just electric. He's really fun to watch. Love the confidence. Was it after what inning? Did he go 7 or was it he went 7, right? The other night.
6 and third, 6
So
and
he
2/3.
pitched. So he pitched into the 7th. Yeah, after the 6th, I think he gets the last out, and you see him kind of doing this to the dugout as if like, yeah, let's keep it rolling. I think he was at like 89 pitches. I went and checked just out of seeing him and out of curiosity. He was clear like I'm in it. We're rolling. Like let's keep it going. And it's when he threw his no hitter and talked Schilt into keeping him in there. There was a game, I think, against the Braves, maybe an afternoon game where he's pumping up the crowd after he got pulled, after like a sensational start. Just the quiet confidence and steadiness that he has when he has it going and when he's pitching like himself. And like you said, over the last couple starts, he's been pitching very much like Dylan Cease, and that's always a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, he would have gotten out of that if he had not walked Luis Rengifo.
Hmm.
You know, it was the walk that got him to 103 pitches, and they weren't going to let him try and get out of that inning after 103. So it's walks are bad, kids, but 10 strikeouts, only 5 hits, 2 runs. Like I'll take that from Dylan Cease any day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yeah, for sure. I was just looking at knuckle curve slide. Yeah, so 67% slider against the Angels.
It works.
And 27% fastball. But yeah, knuckle curve. Yeah. So it's basically just those 2 pitches in essence in that start.
86% of his offerings were those 2 pitches.
Yeah. And so, he started the season against Atlanta, 5% with that sinker that he was working on, and 7% knuckle curve, 10+% change. His next start, 12+% change, 8% knuckle curve, then 7% change, 7% sinker. Still kind of figuring them out. You've seen the change almost disappear. You've seen the sinker almost disappear. The knuckle curve, I mean, that's kind of been his show me pitch. That almost disappeared as well. It's almost like, all right, everything I was toying with and wanted to kind of hone down, forget it. I'm just going to be Dylan Cease.
Just be Dylan Cease. Right. And then, but what's cool though, is he's thrown those other pitches enough now that if he doesn't have the feel for the slider one day, he's got something else he can go to, which is that didn't used to be the case. Mm-hmm. So he's a more complete pitcher now, but he's still attacking hitters with the thing that made him so successful. I think that combination makes him very dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Tee up your chat with Heidi.
Okay, so Heidi Watney, a very cool conversation. We go through a whole bunch of stuff. What I really wanted to know from her is, what's the national view of the Padres? Like when you're coming here with Apple TV, you haven't been here yet, you're going to get your first look at this team. What's in the production meeting? What are people saying about this club? What are the storylines that other people find? And also, like I said, she has a history here. So we wrap a little bit about what it's like being able to come back to San Diego. And of course, burritos do come into the mix because you have to. That's our job. We're contractually obligated. Enjoy a conversation with the lovely and talented Heidi Watney. Of all the things on your resume, Heidi, I assume that former NBC7 sports intern is probably right at the very top of the list, isn't it?
It's up there because that's where I started. That's where I really discovered that not only did I love sports, but I loved this business. I loved reporting on sports, and I thought I could make a career out of it. So yes, it definitely is.
So that turned out to be a pretty good choice. You've definitely made a career and then some out of it. When you get to this spot here, do you kind of take a second and look back like, man, I've done some stuff?
I've been very fortunate to get to experience so many great different things in my career, especially just, being at all the World Series events, all the All-Star games, covering so many. I mean, when I was in Boston as the Red Sox reporter, the Celtics won the NBA Finals in 2008, I want to say. Yeah, right shortly after I got there. So I got to experience that and what the city was like, so vibrant with the Celtics winning. And then the Boston Bruins won in 2010, somewhere back here on a shelf. I have a Boston Bruins ring because Nesson was the Bruins partner and the Red Sox partner. So I got to experience so many great things when I lived in Boston and the championship culture that's there. And obviously the Patriots dominance there. And then Being at MLB Network was so much fun, getting to cover all the jewel events for baseball and getting to know so many great people. I mean, that's one of the things I love so much about baseball is it's a family. You know, Xander Bogaerts was back in Boston when I was there. He was just coming up. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience.
And now you got Apple TV Plus, which is, I think probably 10, 15 years ago, us were working in this business. We're kind of, what's the streaming thing? Like this isn't going to catch on. And now it's where we find everything. Just kind of, how is the business and your involvement in it now changed over the last, even 5-6 years, where this is kind of the wave of the future. It looks great on TV. The signal's awesome. It's fairly seamless. Just from being inside of it, what exactly is the inside workings of streaming with sports, and how much further are we going to take this thing?
Well, it's interesting because when I was still in the building at MLB Network, the streaming services were starting to become a thing, and we were trying to adapt the ball game for how MLB Network produced things as an arm of MLB. And then when I decided to move back to California and was able to get on with this package, which is still produced by MLB Network, but to partner with someone like Apple, where excellence is the standard. When I go to a ballpark every Friday, they're like, oh, Apple's here. And the number one thing I hear from all the players and family members and everything is how great the picture quality is and how great the broadcast quality is. I mean, you don't see a better picture in all of sports. It is true 4K. It's crystal clear. We try to bring you closer to the action. And I think that's one of the cool things about streaming that's changing the game, is that with all of these different streaming partners, they're trying to up the game and they're trying to make it more fan friendly, right? So what we're doing on our broadcast, we're doing the player interviews that I think we're lined up to talk to Fernando Tatis Jr. as he's running out on the field. We've got 2 quick questions just to get the viewers, to get the fans inside the mind of what's going through his head as he takes the field at the start of the game. We're talking to Julio Rodriguez from Seattle in game. He's going to be mic'd up doing the talk back. I mean, fans have said they love those things. So we're trying to bring more and more of that to the viewer. And that's one of the things that streaming is doing. It's really pushing the envelope, because you have to be extra to get people to subscribe and to turn off their regular channel that they're used to watching their team on and come over and watch us. So we're trying to give them something extra with the broadcast. And you're seeing it with the NFL, you're seeing with the NBA, you're seeing it with all sports. So it's not just baseball that's doing it. Baseball was one of the first to do it, but I think that's just makes us pioneers. And look, if you're not on streaming at this point, like, what are you doing? You're getting left behind.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask you, is because as fans, we love seeing those in-game things. I mean, we kind of think back to Craig Sager and Greg Popovich, how they kind of became like a shtick between them with the in-game interview, and do these guys actually like doing it? And sometimes it looks like the baseball players actually enjoy doing it. Has that been your experience with them? Is that they kind of like maybe breaking it up a little bit and talking in the middle of a game, because baseball they have so many breaks and lulls during the course of play?
Yeah. And well, with the new rules in baseball, it's kind of upped the pace of the play. So there's not as much downtime. Certainly they've cut a lot of that out with the pitch clock and all the different rules. But we don't force anyone to do it. So anyone we're talking to is someone that wants to do it. And also, I think players are realizing if they want to be marketed better, they need to be out there with their voice. And from watching it, and it started at All-Star games, which is an obvious place to start it because there's not a whole lot on the line there. But they're seeing that fans are getting to know the Bryce Harpers and the Mookie Betts and the Mike Trouts better, because we're getting to see them mic'd up. We're getting to see their personalities. We're getting to talk to them. And in game, you don't have to go find an interview in a pregame show or see what people have posted on social media. It's happening as the action is happening. We had a great one. First week of the season, we had Mets Astros. And we had Francisco Lindor mic'd up. And he had 2 of the 3 putouts in that inning were hot shots right to shortstop. And infielders are dicey. I mean, you got to have a really sure-handed infielder to do a mic'd up interview in game, because those balls are coming in quick. Outfielders have a little more time to react. But it was great to see his interaction with the third baseman, with the pitcher, with everything on the field that's going on, and him field the play, make the put out, hear him grunting as he's diving for a play. It's just a really cool way to take fans closer to the action and also to showcase what what a cool dude he is, what a smooth guy he is, that he can do that while playing a baseball game and still talk back to people. It's I think players are realizing that it's something that really can showcase them if they can handle it. And there are guys that don't want to do it. They just want to be locked in and focused on the game. And we are certainly not going to push it on anyone who doesn't want to.
As a former corner infielder, I would love to see a first baseman or a catcher mic'd up, because that's where all the conversations happen. Someone gets to first, they're talking about the kids. The catcher would be the best one, just to hear exactly what he's saying to the umpire, because those conversations are going on that we never get really privy to.
Yeah, I'm not sure the catchers and umpires are going to like that, but we do target first baseman a good amount, because you're right. There's so much conversation at first. And we often have another player that's just wearing a mic during a game. And then there's someone in the truck that's ingesting all of that video. Last game, we had Harrison Bader. I'm not sure who we're getting this game, but they're ingesting all of that video, and then we just roll it in coming back from a commercial break or at a point in the game where we can roll in like something that happens. And first basemen are perfect for that, because they are getting all those conversations for everyone who shows up there.
Yeah, the production value is fantastic. All right, let's just hone in on the Padres here. Got off to a great start, as we all know, but we all look at it here because we're at Petco Park every week, and we talk to the guys, and we kind of know that maybe they're a little bit ahead of schedule for what most people thought they would be. So take us into a production meeting as you're getting ready to come do this game. What is the talk about the Padres, and how is it maybe different than you guys thought it would be before the season started?
I think the Padres are surprising a few people in how hot they've started out. They're a talented roster. They were a talented roster last year. I think we expected more out of them last year. And I think we're just kind of like, yeah, this is the Padres that we expected to see more last year. It's a really tough NL West. I mean, the team in the division that's surprising most people is the Giants. Everyone knew the Diamondbacks were going to be good. And the Padres and Dodgers kind of have been the class of the league for the last couple of years, but the Giants are surprising a lot of people. So it's going to be a dogfight in the West, but it's great to see San Diego healthy, performing. I mean, we got to see Xander Bogaerts get his thing done last night. We got to see Tatis with his first walk-off homer of his career the other night. I mean, it's a fun team to watch. I said last year, my favorite teams to cover, because they've got personality, they're fun. You go there, they're engaging with their fan base, or the Padres, the Dodgers, the Mets. Those teams are the Phillies. They're really fun watches, right? And you're getting to see these guys healthy and performing. And that's, I mean, the greatest thing you can ask for as a Padres fan, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. As you know, there were some lean years for the Padres. So being able to see a team that really is legitimately fun to watch is awesome. I said before the year, I thought Fernando Tatis Jr. would win the National League MVP award, and he has done nothing but prove that's a possibility. But I'm wondering now, with the emergence of Jackson Merrill, did I pick the wrong Padres outfielder to be the potential MVP? I mean, this kid at 21 just turned 22 years old. You don't see many kids like that at that age who are that good, but also have that much command of a clubhouse. What have you seen from the outside when you're trying to get in you're getting ready to get to know Jackson Merrill?
Well, Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr., both former shortstops, converted into the outfield, which AJ Preller just wants to put a shortstop at every position. They're the most athletic guys on the field, right? And it's interesting too, because the two are good friends, which is fun and makes that dynamic even better for them. Their communication, they're going after balls. I mean, you hear it. We just had Twins the other day, and Byron Buxton was talking about how great it is to have Harrison Bader out there in left field with him, because you can make a diving play, you can go aggressively because you're going to be backed up. And that's the kind of relationship that those two have out there. So they make each other better, right? And then offensively, it's always a competition, especially when you're friends with your teammates, right? There's a little extra smack talk. There's a little bit extra like prodding. There's extra time in the cage. You're wanting to spend time together. You're wanting to get to the field early. You're wanting to work hard to not only be the best ball player you can be, but to be around your friends, right? So that's what makes this environment so good. Is that the team is finally coming together. This team with all of this talent is finally gelling, because a couple years ago, we didn't see that. We saw, 26 guys taking 26 different cabs. We saw like, what's going on with this team? What's the dynamic? There's so much talent. Why aren't they performing? And that was just a few short years ago. So, but it's been fun to watch Jackson Merrill's development. We were talking about this in our production meeting the other day, how the Padres, I think, score a run and a half more better. I'd have to look at the stats here, but they're a run and a half game better with Merrill in the lineup. I mean, I know it's not all him, but the dynamic that he creates there in that order, and he's fast, he gets on base, he's dynamic, like Tatis is. And the two of them together, they're just really fun to watch. I tell my son all the time, he's 7, and he's become a big Padres fan, and he loves, his name's Jackson too. So he loves Jackson Merrill, but he loves Tatis. He's got the city connects for both of them now. And I say, they play with their best friend. It's always fun when you're out there playing with your good friends.
Yeah, what Merrill does is he lengthens that lineup, because now when he's in there, Gavin Sheets goes from hitting 5th to hitting 7th. And that guy's been ripping the cover off the ball. So it becomes a much better, deeper lineup. It's just so much fun to watch what that kid's able to do. From your perspective, when you're covering a team that does have this kind of personality, and we've talked about that here many times. Manny, when he lets his guard down, is really, really funny. Toddy is great. You got all these. Mike Schilt is one of he kind of break down what he's trying to tell you in his own way. How much fun is it for you to get to a team like this where you're like, man, I can really dive in and just have a good time during a broadcast?
It's a lot of fun for us, especially with the team like this. And you said there's a number of guys early in the week when we're targeting who we want to talk to for our pregame show, who we want to take the field, who we want to target for headsets. He said, how about Manny? And I said, feel like I talk to Manny every time we come. And I love Manny. I've known Manny since he was a Baltimore Oriole and I was the Red Sox reporter. We go way back. I said, but lately, let's share the love a little bit. And I talked to Tatis a lot, although we're going to get him taking the field because I just want to get inside his head as he's running out there. We're going to get to talk to Jackson Merrill. But that's the one thing my producer said. They said there's so much talent and so much personality on this team that you really can't go wrong. You're not like some teams we get to, and there's only 1 or 2 guys that you really want to talk to from a national broadcast perspective. This team has plenty of that.
Xander is the guy you mentioned, and we root for him like crazy out here. Nothing but a stand-up great guy. He's the one, if Toddy's in a slump, you can say, okay, he's selling out too much. His swings gets too big, whatever. I can't figure out what's going on with Xander, why the power numbers haven't been there yet. He's come around lately, but knowing him better than most people out here probably do. Have you been able to kind of talk to him or hone in on what might be going on? And can you give us a little insight into just the guy that he really is? Because I've had nothing but great interactions and nothing but respect for him.
Yeah. I think the thing with Xander that surprised him a lot is that he was signed by the Red Sox when he was 16 years old. The Red Sox were the only organization he knew. He had such an inherent trust because he was a kid when he was brought into the fold. And then going to San Diego, I think that really just threw him for a loop that he didn't expect. New coaches, new environment, new place to live, finding a home, getting comfortable with a new hitting coach and a new manager. And then there's been so much change over with San Diego for the last couple of years too, that he changed again. And for him, that trust is important, and feeling comfortable with who you're working with and your mechanics of everything. So I think it took him, he admitted it to me, it took him like the entire first year just to even feel comfortable in San Diego with the different coaches and with what they're doing to implement. So, I mean, these guys have had their swings their whole lives, but you have all these different voices chiming in. And now with analytics, you have even more voices chiming in on what you should be doing. And you can break down your swings with TrackMan and with everything, like down to just exact sciences, and watch the exact breakdown of everything. So it's almost information overload. And for him, I think he needs to feel a little more comfortable in his skin. And it took him a while in San Diego to get there. And so when he gets out of it at points, it's more of a comfort thing with him. He's such a great player and he's such a great human being. I think he can get back there. It's just, for him, it's a matter of comfort.
The teams you mentioned, they had good personalities: Padres, Dodgers, Mets, Phillies. They're all also very, very good baseball teams. So you got TrackMan and Rapsodo and just pitching labs and exit velocities and barrel rates. The one thing that they will never be able to put a metric on is chemistry. And it's one thing that people in sports will debate, till the end of time, whether or not chemistry, A, is real or B, matters. What's your take on chemistry? Just from being around clubs that have won and not won, is it real and how important is it?
It's very real. I learned fairly early on in my career in baseball how important chemistry is. 2011 Red Sox, they signed Adrian Gonzalez. They brought in Carl Crawford. I mean, they won the offseason. The Red Sox on paper should have crushed everyone. It should have been like the 2025 Dodgers, right? The chemistry was off from the start. They just never gelled. And you talk about, at that time, 25 guys and 25 Cavs. And by the end of the season, they had a 10-game lead at the start of September and completely collapsed and missed the postseason altogether. And that team had so much talent, but they didn't have the chemistry. And they had a couple of bad apples in that clubhouse that really turned things sour. And San Diego saw it just a couple of years ago when Juan Soto was a Padre. That team had so much talent and had Juan Soto, this $785 million man, playing on that team. That team should have won, right? They didn't. Chemistry wasn't right. So if those two examples don't show you how important chemistry is, and it's one of those things you can, when you hear GMs say addition by subtraction, because someone wasn't a fit for whatever reason, you got to take them out of that situation to get it going. So when you get these teams, and you're right, to your point, the 4 teams I mentioned that were my favorite to cover last year because they were fun to cover and they had personality and they all did really well. They have talent. You can't not have talent, right? But they were fun. And we just saw that in Minnesota. They're on a 10-game winning streak. That team was having fun. And they started off the season not great. And they had a ton of injuries. So getting guys healthy is also very important. Chemistry and health, very important. But when you see people, all they say, pulling on the same rope, pulling for each other, wanting to be around each other, wanting to pick each other up, that's really important. And it's not one of those things that you can I fight with my husband about this I used to fight. Now he's coming around, but he's a former front office executive in MLB. And I used to always tell him how important chemistry was. And he's like, yeah. I think he's realizing.
Yeah, he'll see your way eventually. It's the too many examples. It cannot simply be circumstantial evidence at this point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, so when you come down here, and the food here obviously is amazing. What's your go-to spot? Is it the burrito? Where do you go?
I was just thinking about this. Literally, as I was packing my suitcase, I'm going to go to Cotijas and get the hash brown burrito, because the hash brown burrito at Cotijas is the best breakfast burrito on the planet. There is no argument. Or go get some good sushi, because I love the great sushi. There's so many spots. We stay down by the gas lamps. There's so many spots that you can go to down there that I love. Even Hodad's, if you want a burger, love going to Hodad's and OB. I don't know. It's tough. It's really, really tough. I don't know what I'm going to do, to be honest. It's going to be a game time decision, what I'm feeling.
I did Hodad's last night. You can't go wrong.
You can't. It's so good.
Awesome. And then Heidi, finally, thank you for taking all the time, by the way. It's very, very nice talking to you. The Dodgers and the Padres, I feel like the Giants are probably going to fall off at some point because the pitching's there, but Adames can't carry the entire offense the entire year, even though he's had some ups and downs. I figure the Diamondbacks have to eventually figure out the bullpen. They got too much talent not to. But if we're looking at, if it pulls away and becomes a 2-team race between the Padres and the Dodgers, I have maintained, and people have yelled at me for the last few years, the Dodgers have too much talent over 162 games for them to not win the division. But with all of their injuries, is it possible that this is the year that if anybody's going to pick them off, the Padres might be the team to pick them off?
Well, you even saw how, yes. First of all, yes, I think the Padres could pick them off. I wouldn't discount the Giants so much. And maybe it's recency bias because we just had them last week. But Willie Adames addition with Mac Chapman, who's a dynamic player as well. Wilmer Flores has been like Mr. Clutch on that team. I think they have, and Elliot Ramos, he really came on the scene last year. Jung-Hoo Lee, guy makes contact with everything. So don't count the Giants out yet. And I think a big X factor for them is Buster Posey, getting these guys back to being baseball players again. Not numbers on a spreadsheet, baseball players. And to a man, that's what they talked about. But you're right. The talent on the Padres and the Dodgers is undeniable. And I do think the Padres could knock them off. The Dodgers have so much depth. You even saw it last postseason, right? They had completely run out of pitching. They were so hurt in the postseason, and yet they found a way to win the World Series. That team is just a juggernaut between the very smart guys they've got in their front office and their analytics to the talent on their roster. And Dave Roberts, you talk about a chemistry guy, just bringing it all together. And the other thing that the Dodgers have is selfless leaders. Selfless leaders. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, those two are never about themselves. They post every day. They're picking up their teammates, and they're always talking about how great their teammates are. I interviewed the two of them together in a sit down and was joking that Freddie beat out Mookie for MVP one year, and they just laugh. And they're like, speaking of best friends playing on a team, they are. Their families are close, the whole thing. So when your leaders are grinders and selfless, that creates the environment that is just ripe for success, right? And I think we're seeing that in San Diego more and more. I think that this team is coming together and gelling. And they have the talent. They certainly do. But that's baseball, dude. That's why they play the games, right?
That's the great dilemma I have with the Dodgers is I watched what they did to the Padres last year with the bullpen games and winning in a way they should never have won. And I want to hate them, but they're such good guys.
They're so likable, right?
They're so likable. I know it sucks. Like I want to hate you, but I can't because you're cool.
Right. I mean, I grew up in Fresno, California as kind of a Giants fan, especially, during Barry Bonds and all that. And then I went to school in San Diego, became a big Padres fan. And I just have wanted to hate the Dodgers so much, but you can't because they're such a likable group.
Is Ohtani human? He's because I think
Tommy and all of that.
Right. I think he's from Krypton or something. Like the guy, he's and we've all watched him. We've seen him multiple times in person. You've seen him, closer than most people probably get a chance to. And I've heard it's the work ethic, it's the natural talent, it's this innate ability, this baseball IQ that's off the charts. What is it that makes him him?
I think he's one of those people, the Michael Jordans, the Derek Jeters of the world, that just have that internal fortitude to want to always be the best. And Derek Jeter once told me, he said, someone can have more talent than me, but they're not going to outwork me. Well, he had both. He had the talent and he had the drive. And Shohei's one of those people. I mean, they wanted to, when he was a young age in Japan, they wanted him to decide, are you going to be a positioner? Are you going to be a hitter? Or are you going to be a pitcher? You can't be both. And he said, I will show you that not only can I be both, I will be the best at both. And that's what drives him to be so successful in both parts. And he, by all accounts, his work ethic is tireless. He is at the ballpark all day, every day, working on the pitching side of things, which we're going to get to see him come back on the mound soon. And then the hitting side of things, which we saw when he focused on that one aspect of his game last year, just how good he can be. I think it's one of those things, natural ability, yes, but just that, whatever it is, chemical in your brain that makes you the GOAT at your, whatever your endeavor is, he's got that.
And then finally, settle a debate for me. Vet or Cup? Cool or kitschy?
I think it's cool. I like it. I'm leaning into it. I'm gonna wear my leather. I'm gonna be like all ready out there tomorrow. But he's the Cubs fan.
Right. That's the great irony of all of this. Is he grew up here, he became famous in Seattle, and he roots for the Cubs.
I understand the connection, and I understand that for rivalry weekend, wanting to up the ante for this rivalry, which is, the two West Coast teams that are left that are, LA, whatever. Sure, give them the rivalry. But, wanting to take it up a notch. And hey, if he leans into it, who are we to say no? But